Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Bobby Hammz here with my review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Last Skywalker. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Bobby Hammz here with my review of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. And this movie is supposed to be the final in the Disney era trilogy of George Lucas's Star Wars movies. Now, the first trilogy of movies was very good. The original trilogy, of course, classic movies. The prequel trilogy, they were okay. This last trilogy from Disney has proven to be a very divisive and altogether meandering group of movies. But I'll get to that a little bit later in the spoiler review. This first part of the video is going to be just non-spoilery. The second part of the video will definitely include all the spoilers and most of the spoilers. I didn't bother to try to remember all of the spoilers, but it would definitely have heavy inclusion of spoilers. So the movie is directed by J.J. Abrams. He directed The Force Awakens, and I guess that movie made about $2 billion. So Disney was like, hey, maybe come back and do the third one, since Rian Johnson did his own thing and that didn't make $2 billion. So come back, JJ, do it again for us, maybe. But after seeing the movie, I'm going to go with maybe not. It's like the other two movies in this trilogy, The Rise of Skywalker is not the crowd pleaser I think Disney was hoping for if they had an outline of any kind. Spoiler stuff. So this movie is directed by J.J. Abrams under the Disney umbrella, and it features all the characters from Force Awakens, Oscar Isaac and Daisy Ridley and John Boyega. They all come back as Poe, Rey, and Finn, respectively. And then, all the other people are in there. Billy Dee Williams comes back as Lando Calrissian. For some reason, he's there. And then, of course, you have Adam Driver. He's still the main foe, the main bad guy from Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And on a positive note, all of the actors do a fantastic job of delivering their roles. I believe that they were doing their best with the material that they had to work with. So none of the many problems that the film has is due to the actors. Their camaraderie as far as Finn, Poe, and Rey are concerned. They bicker a little bit, but I guess that's to be expected with friends. Although they do bicker quite a lot, but that's neither here nor there. Another positive of the movie is that the worlds do feel large and expansive and lived in. So that's definite plus to the whole thing. It looks good. Visually, there's a lot of stuff going on. I don't think it builds much on the Star Wars lore that maybe George Lucas had in mind when he created this thing. But they visit other planets as part of the plot. Spoiler stuff. So, and the aliens that they meet, they're interesting to look at. And what else was there? The music is also very good. John Williams' score never disappoints, so that's always a positive. And so the actors, convincing. The music's good. The visuals looked okay. And so, well, the plot of the movie. The movie was about, let's say. The movie was about Rey finding a way to get to Palpatine and taking out Palpatine, because Palpatine is back after 30 years or so. I don't know what the movie really was about. It was kind of all over the place. There was a lot of stuff going on, and it felt like JJ and Disney tried to have 3 movies in one here, where they tried to have the movie that JJ started out with on The Force Awakens, and then kind of retconning the stuff that Rian Johnson created in The Last Jedi, and then also trying to have a movie that completed the Star Wars trilogy for Disney. So it was like, yeah, we're going to try to continue the story that he started in The Force Awakens. We're going to try to explain away the stuff that happened in The Last Jedi, and we're going to try to wrap up the entire Skywalker saga in 2.5 hours. It did not accomplish that goal at all. Is it worth seeing? I wouldn't watch it again, and I really wouldn't recommend anyone go watch it, because it's an incredible waste of time. It's an incredible waste of time. Most of the stuff that happens in there kind of just meanders around for a very large chunk of the movie, and it was boring. I was bored watching it, and I tried to go into it with an open mind, but having known that The Force Awakens was basically a cut and paste of the New Hope, of the first Star Wars movie, and then seeing what happened with The Last Jedi, I was like, okay, well, I got to see how it ends at least. But then this movie, I gotta say, people are saying they course corrected. This movie just blatantly just like wiped off certain things from The Last Jedi. There's no direction whatsoever, which is crazy because it had 2 different directors working on 3 movies, but there's no direction. That's it for the non-spoiler stuff. So I disliked most of the movie, which is why I can't think of any more positives that I really liked about it. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you're not interested in being spoiled, go ahead and click off the video now and come back later when you have. And thanks for stopping in. As for the rest of you, River?
Spoilers!
Okay, so first spoiler of the movie is that there are no plots in this movie, but yet there are still like 5 different stories going on all at once. Now you might think to yourself, how the hell can a movie with no plot have 5 plots and that be the spoiler of the movie? Now you gotta think, this is The Rise of Skywalker. Shit does not need to make sense, okay? Does not need to happen at all. So don't even think about that for too long, because there are actually 3 or 4 different stories that are going on at the same time. Like I said, JJ is trying to add on to what he made in The Force Awakens, while simultaneously retconning what happened in The Last Jedi, while simultaneously trying to finish this 9 movie story, which nothing gets accomplished because of that approach. And a lot of this movie is spent going backwards for ideas for this movie itself, and just reversing a lot of things that happen in the movie. One of the first things, like I said, there's no plot and there's a lot of things going on. So we've got the story with the Resistance, Poe and Finn fighting the New Order, the First Order, the New Republic, whatever the hell. That's what they're doing. They're trying to get Resistance fighters to start caring again. And then you've got Kylo Ren. He's on his own personal mission of trying to become the ultimate leader in the galaxy. So he's out trying to get recruits, and he's just demolishing people, and he's trying to run an empire. And then Palpatine, he shows up, and Palpatine is trying to kill Rey, right? And he needs Ren's help to find Rey. It's just a whole thing. And then you get to Rey. She is still dealing with her lineage again. After it was something, and then it was nothing, and now it's something again. Rey has to find Palpatine. Rey, Finn, and Poe, they go on this goddamn treasure hunt for like an hour and 40 minutes. They're going from one planet to see the, okay, so the whole thing with this planet that, what's his name is on, planet Execo, that's where he's hiding. Palpatine's hiding there on his planet, and he's got this whole fleet of like Star Destroyers, their ships, the big cruise ships, and they're all like laced with planet destroying weapons now. So they're all Death Stars. He's got a whole fleet of Death Stars because that's an original idea. Yeah, it's original. Death Stars were done, like one Death Star was done, and then we had a planet killer base thing that was a Death Star, but now it's like a whole fleet of Death Stars, so it's totally different from the other Death Stars that were here before. So Palpatine is on his planet Execo, and he's got his fleet of Death Stars, so Rey has to go find him in order to prevent this thing called the Final Order from taking place, in which this fleet of Death Stars will annihilate all the safe bases, all the safe planets that the Resistance is operating in. So it seems like that should have been just the main line of the story, where Rey is going after Palpatine and this fleet. And so Ren is working with Palpatine in order to find Rey, and Rey is looking for this. Okay, so the thing with, oh my God, this treasure hunt thing is it's worse than the casino planet from Last Jedi. So this treasure hunt thing, they've got to find a wayfinder in order to find their way, well, to this Execo planet. But they have to go to a planet and find a guy who Luke Skywalker was, I guess, met. And so, they got to go to this planet, and once they're on the planet, this guy was supposed to be on the planet, and this guy was supposed to have this clue, and they actually used the word clue in the movie. So I was like, wow, more of J.J. Abrams' goddamn mysteries. Get back to that in a second. So they go to this planet, they gotta find this guy is dead, and they gotta find this guy's ship. Oh, the clue might be on this guy's ship. So they find this guy's ship, and they find the clue, but they can't translate the clue. So they got to go to another planet in order to get, because C-3PO, he can read it, but he can't translate it because part of the clue is written in Sith. So they got to go to another planet and find this guy who can have C-3PO translate it, but then that'll make C-3PO get rebooted, have his memory get wiped. So then they do that, and they find that they got to go to another planet in order to find the fucking Wayfinder. And that whole thing takes an hour and 40 minutes of the whole movie. That bouncing from planet to planet thing takes an hour and 40 minutes, just the whole thing. And that whole thing leads to nothing because Kylo Ren is still able to, force speak and, the galaxy telekinetic thing that he had going with Rey. And he's still able to do that. So he's able to find them every single time. It's like not even exciting to see because she goes to this planet. Oh, he finds her, chases her down. That's that scene in the trailer. That's Kylo in that TIE fighter. And that's like the first planet they go to, right? They go to that first planet. He finds her like immediately. They go to another planet. He finds her immediately. They go to a third planet. He finds her. Oh, she's on the ship. It's maddening. Once she finds that Wayfinder on that final planet with the water and everything, Kylo, he's already there.
And then?
That's it.
And then he breaks the thing. So you're like, well, okay, that was a huge goddamn waste of time. Okay, fine. So mystery leads to nothing. Absolutely nothing. So we go back to what I was saying with the mystery. One mystery pops up like in the very first 10 minutes of the movie, and it deals with Finn just out of nowhere. It's like, hey, Rey, I got to tell you something. And then he never tells her. Like, it goes nowhere. And the thing is, Poe asks him, hey, what were you going to tell Rey? And that one answer Finn gives is that, oh, I'll tell her later. And then the other time when Finn asks, when a Poe asks, Finn is like, oh, I can't tell you now. So, and he never tells her. The thing he was going to tell Rey, he never tells her, at least on screen, which is where I think it would matter since that's the fucking movie is playing on screen. So he never tells her. And it's like, what the hell was the point of that mystery? And when that happened, I immediately thought of J.J. Abrams and his propensity for just setting up mystery blocks everywhere and then never knocking them down with an answer. If anyone who's ever watched the ABC show Lost from, 2008, 2009, whenever it was on, J.J. Abrams was one of the writers or showrunners on that show. And I saw that thing with Finn. Oh, I got to tell her something. Never tells her. Lost ended the same way. Why do that? That goes nowhere. And another thing that points to the retconning thing, the Knights of Ren, who I never saw in The Force Awakens or in The Last Jedi. It was just people that were talked about, right? They were just like a rumor. Oh, the Knights of Ren, they're so badass, the Knights of Ren. Never actually saw them. In this movie, they walk down the hall and stormtroopers are like, oh yeah, the Knights of Ren. They're cool. Like they were here the whole time because they weren't here the whole time. You gotta force it on me and be like, oh yeah, the Knights of Ren, they're cool. Another thing was the overpoweredness of Rey. She could take Captain Marvel in a fist fight. I'm not kidding. Okay. You put Captain Marvel up against Rey, it's a done deal. You put all your money on Rey to win in 90 seconds. Because Rey in this movie, again, without any formal training from any Jedi, right? Because Leia wasn't training her, at least on camera, where it matters, right? She is not only able to move rocks or whatever like she was doing in the last movie. Now she's able to heal wounds like Baby Yoda, like Yoda from Mandalorian. She's able to do that. She's also able to stop and control ships in the sky. And she's able to shoot lightning from her fingers. And she's able to bring people back from the dead. So the ship in the sky thing, she's out doing force sensing Ren, who's coming after her. So she wanders away from the ship that they're trying to take off in. And while Chewie's out there trying to tell her to come back to the ship, he gets picked up by some stormtroopers who, of course, they got there in record time. And so the ship is taking off, and that's when Kylo shows up, and Rey is fighting with him, and he's trying to pull it back and blah, blah, blah. And then she shoots a lightning from her fingertips, and the ship blows up. Holy shit, did she just kill Chewie? No! Seems unnecessary. But then, talking about the reversal stuff with this movie, like 2 scenes later, oh yeah, he's fine. Unnecessary psych out that had no payoff. So going back to the Knights of Ren, where they showed up 0 times in the other 2 movies, they were showing up everywhere in this movie. Everywhere. But they still did nothing. Absolutely nothing. Fucking 0. They did nothing. They were just there to basically say, hey, yeah, we can see Rey. She's here. And then Ren would be like, okay. And then he would go. And then, of course, Rey and Finn and Poe, they'd leave there, go somewhere else. And then the Knights of Ren would be like, yeah, we can see Rey. she's here. While Kylo and Rey are fighting, this is after he destroys the Wayfinder. And, it looks good. The waves are crashing everywhere. It looks all very good. And then Leia calls out to Kylo, and it distracts him long enough to where Rey can get his lightsabers and shoves it through his belly the same way that he shoved it through Harrison Ford in The Force Awakens. So a good parallel there. Nice little, mirror to how he killed his dad, and that's how he gets killed. Okay, so then Leia dies there at the same time that Kylo dies. And Rey, of course, she's OP. She can sense Leia dying at the same time. She's kind of like, oh, well, I guess I shouldn't have done that. And so this is where she brings Kylo back to life because, hey, she's got all the powers, right? And I really felt bad for Daisy Ridley because she's a great actress. She, like I said in the non-spoiler part, all the actors did a very good job of portraying their characters, but then they all just became functions of the story and not actual characters with motivations, or they had to do this, so they did that. They had to do that, so they did that. It's all very just mathematical. It's very bad to watch. So this is where the movie starts to make everything easy because it's winding down. You gotta get to a conclusion, like quick, fast, and in a hurry. So Rey is back on Jakku. She's burning down the hut and throwing everything in there, and she goes to throw, I think it's Luke's lightsaber into the fire. And then, of course, Force Ghost Luke, he just grabs it and is like, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And they have a little chit chat about, I guess, being good or whatever. I wasn't paying attention. I started to check out because when she's like, oh, I got to do this thing, but I'm such a loser and blah, blah, blah. I can't believe I'm Palpatine's granddaughter. And oh yeah, by the way, she's Palpatine's granddaughter. And that's why she is so powerful and OP even without training. And I didn't see that part as being like that big of a reveal because it really wasn't that much of a reveal. I can just imagine that when they were trying to, write that part of the story, they were thinking, hey, they had this really great scene in Empire where Luke learned that Vader was his dad. Maybe we should do that same thing with Rey. But Rey's parents are nobody, so we can't do that. Oh, her grandfather is someone important. You're like, but who? But who can Rey's grandfather be? What about Emperor Palpatine? But he's dead. Did you see his body? No. So they were probably thinking, hey, that's going to be a great reveal for the audience. They're going to be like, oh my goodness. And no, that's not the case at all. That was such a lame reveal. It was just like, oh, you're going back to that thing again. You're traveling back to the past. You're going backwards again in order for story ideas. Okay. So anyway, she learns that she's Palpatine's granddaughter. She doesn't like that fact. Luke is like, hey, the Force is just, you pick your own path or whatever the hell. And she's like, well, okay, I still got to go find him. I still got to get to this Exegol planet. I don't know how to get there because the Wayfinder was destroyed. And then Luke is just like, oh yeah, I've got one right here. So he just has one there on the planet that he was recently inhabiting. And he's like, oh, you didn't bother to say anything about this in The Last Jedi. Again, retconning some things, keeping other things, right? So she takes the thing out and she's like, well, okay, I guess that was easy. I guess this whole hour and 40 minutes that led me to this point was a whole goddamn waste of time. Cool. But I still don't have a way to get to Exegol. And Luke is just like, oh yeah, by the way, force lift. Here's my X-Wing fighter. Remember the one that I had in the movies from the past? Yeah, you can use that. Oh, cool. Now I've got the Wayfinder and I've got an X-Wing and I've got one lightsaber. And Luke's like, oh yeah, here's Leia's lightsaber because, fan fiction, got my lightsaber and you've got Leia's lightsaber. Totally awesome, dude. This is Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Fan Service. So Kylo Ren is now good. He goes to join Rey and they see Palpatine. He's hooked up to this exoskeleton thing that's keeping him alive. And he didn't want to kill Rey. He wanted to have Rey become the new Empress of the Sith Lords. So that's why he killed her parents. Palpatine throws Kylo Ren, off to some other pit where he supposedly dies again. He doesn't though. He comes back to life at the end of this fight. And Palpatine, I guess, draws the life force from Rey and Ren, and he becomes back to normal, and he's shooting lightning everywhere, and the Resistance is up there, and Finn And Poe is leading the resistance because now he's a new general instead of Leia. So he's leading the resistance. And some fighters, and and Finn is on some ship with some new character, and he's trying to manually blow up this space cruiser thing, and it's all very ridiculous, and people get thrown around like rag dolls, and no one gets injured, and everything's hunky-dory. So as Palpatine is doing his best like Raiden impression, we hear a bunch of Jedi voices going through Rey's head, Samuel L. Jackson, what's his name? All the ones from the prequels, just everyone is just talking to her about, oh, be a Jedi, get up, stand up, blah, blah, blah. And so she gets back up. Palpatine turns his electricity fingers onto her, and she just blocks them with the sabers. And I don't know, I guess that's not that powerful of an attack, the lightning thing. So, cause she blocks it easily and walks it back towards him and then melts his own face off like Indiana Jones. And I was like, well, that was easy. Makes it easy. He gets defeated, and then they all celebrate. And there's this, Rey, but Rey dies in the process of doing that. She dies, and Kylo Ren climbs up out of the hole where he was thrown into, and then he brings her back to life because everyone can bring everyone else back to life. He brings her back to life, and then they embrace and they hug. And I was watching it because they were looking into each other's eyes very longingly. And I was like, okay, now, and I was just saying this as a joke. Like, okay, now they kiss. And then they kissed. And I was like, what the fuck? Why? And I was like, oh, because fan fiction, Star Wars, the rise of fan service. Then he dies. For real this time, though. He dies and doesn't come back to life. So the movie is about to end, and, there's celebration, and the Wookiees show up because they were in the last movie with the Jedi, the Return of the Jedi. So why not reach back again and bring some old ideas into a new thing and make it new? And that's how you make it new. So fine. Okay. So there were Wookiees. And then there was another celebration, and there's this couple that's like, the camera's going over the celebrations of everyone. And there's this couple, there's two women who are kissing, like, I guess that was supposed to be some kind of major contention in China or something. I don't know. It didn't seem like that big a deal to me, but like, I guess that's like a thing that they're probably going to remove if China doesn't like it, which is kind of dumb because those characters were like way the fuck in the background, and you see them for like a second and a half because the camera's like moving like this. So it's not like they were up in the front and, you get a clear look at who they were. They're like gone like that. So that's real brave of Disney, having this supposed gay couple in the movie. Real forward thinking there. The movie ends with Rey going back to Tatooine and back to Luke's home, and she buries Luke and Leia's lightsaber, and then makes her own lightsaber, and then some random woman is like, hey, no one's been here in a while, who are you? And she's like, oh, my name's Rey. And he's like, Rey what? And then she looks off into the distance and sees Luke and Leia's ghosts. And she's like, Rey Skywalker. The movie was it's not a good movie. It just shows you that Disney and J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy, and there was no goddamn direction for any of these movies at all. Everything was just, hey, let's just borrow from the past and keep telling the same old stuff over and over. Like the thing with Palpatine could have been a good idea if Rey, of course, wasn't such a wasted character, because she had a lot of potential to be the next sort of Luke Skywalker. But that whole thing was just squandered, which is giving her all the powers in the world that she didn't have to train for at all. And then just this whole thing with her lineage being a mystery for what reason? There was no reason for her lineage to be a mystery. It worked in the case of Vader and Luke because no one had seen that coming before. But now that kind of reveal has been done to death so much in movies and TV since then that keeping it a secret for the sake of keeping it a secret is just a waste of time. And that's what it proved to be in this series. Because if you wanted to show people that Rey was Palpatine's daughter or granddaughter, that could have been done at the end of the first movie. Or at least at the end of the second movie. And that's where she finds out she's devastated by it. And then she's struggling with, her heritage and all this stuff. She doesn't want to believe it, just like Luke didn't want to believe it. He eventually accepted it and tried to help his dad get back to the side of good. Now, that could have been done with Rey, and people could have been like, oh, okay, copying it, but whatever. But it wasn't done that way. It was like kept a secret, and by the time this third movie came around, it was like, oh, we meant to do that the whole time. It's like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You thought, hey, if we have Palpatine be revealed as Rey's grandfather, that'll be a good reveal, right, Luke? No! Of course not. Terrible, terrible, terrible idea. And I mean, this thing was a whole waste of time. Watching this movie made me dislike The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi even more, because looking at all the pieces now that everything's complete, well, supposedly complete, looking at all the pieces now, you can see that The Force Awakens had this thing going on. It borrowed everything from the first Star Wars movie. Okay, fine. But then The Last Jedi went in like a complete opposite direction. Okay. And then I actually would have preferred seeing where they built up from The Last Jedi, because that would have forced the creative team behind these Star Wars movies at Disney, that would have forced them to come up with something new had they stuck with where Rian Johnson left off in the Last Jedi. But they said, no, let's make it easy and just go back over here and keep borrowing from stuff from 30 years ago. Just keep it easy. And what they're left with in this movie is just a whole lot of nonsense that really doesn't match up with anything that was supposedly set up in the other two movies. And it's just a huge waste of time because of it. You know, the movie goes nowhere except in circles, basically. And you get dizzy and then you leave. And you're like, what the hell did I just watch? So that's it for the Skywalker saga, supposedly. Maybe they'll come out with another one in order to try to clean this one up also. J.J. Abrams has continued to prove to me that he is not a good director. He doesn't have any good story ideas. He can do his visual good stuff, I guess, but his work on Lost, and then his work on Star Trek Into Darkness, and now his work on Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker just tells me that the guy can shoot movies as far as like, you know, shooting moving pictures and lighting scenes and all that stuff, but he's a terrible storyteller. He has no new ideas to offer to anything. He's just repeating the same things that someone else did and putting them in different clothes. It made me think of that really old Vanilla Ice interview where he's trying to defend his Ice Ice Baby song from this lawsuit that they were facing from Queen for not Bohemian Rhapsody, for Under Pressure. And it's such a ridiculous thing. And watching this movie made me think of that clip.
We sampled them from him, but it's not the same bass line. Like it goes ding 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 diggy ding ding, ding 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 diggy ding ding, ding ding ding. That's the way theirs goes. Ours goes ding 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 diggy ding ding, ding 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 diggy ding.
Dum 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 dum. That's how I think of J.J. Abrams' storytelling abilities. No, it's not the same thing, you see, because Spock yelled Into Darkness. It's not the same thing because Rey is a woman. So completely different stories. Way, way different. So that's going to do it for me. Thanks for stopping by. I really don't recommend you watch Star Wars. Don't pay for it anyway in the theater. That's a waste of money and time. But if you go to see it, you know, if you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Movies are all subjective. That's the rule that I live by. I heard a lot of the reviews about it before I went and saw it, but I mean, I went and saw it anyway because that's just who I am. I don't let my actions get dictated by others. So go see it if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. I couldn't recommend it out of good conscience. I'm never going to watch it again myself. But that's all I have for this review. Like and subscribe if you like to like and subscribe to things, and I'll see you next time. Ciao.